Hi, welcome everyone. We'll just give it a few minutes and then we'll get started, okay? And in order to interact today, you can use the chat there at the top of your screen for any questions that you may have, and then we'll address all of those at the end of the session. Okay, let's get started, okay? So good morning, everyone, and welcome to our annual grant application webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. My name is Meg Meredith, Grants Manager here at PEDIGREE Foundation, and I'll also be your host for today's event. So joining me today is Dr. Tiffany Beer. Dr. Tiffany serves us on the Foundation board as our chair of our grant committee, and I'm happy to have her with us today. Say hi, Dr. Tiffany.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thanks, Meg, for setting this up today.
So let's talk briefly about what our agenda will cover today. We'll welcome and we'll tell you a bit more about who we are as a foundation. We'll talk about the grant timing, the grant opportunities, any new updates to the grant guidelines. Most importantly, how we evaluate the applications. We'll go through each section. And then Dr. Tiffany will take us through our site audit process. And then finally, we'll leave some time at the end for any questions that you may have. And just note that there'll be a recording available of this webinar tomorrow on our website, okay? Probably in the afternoon at some point. So who we are, a bit more about us. You see our vision and mission here. We see a day when all dogs are safe, secure, fed well, cared for, and loved. The foundation staff is tiny, but a mighty team of 4, including Deb Fair, our executive director, our retail manager, Anna Willoughby, and then our great intern, Helena McNamara, who handles all of our helping with our Dogs Rule merchandise and events. So we're also governed by a volunteer board of directors that all have a heart for making the world a better place for pets. And speaking of that, and just on a personal note, on behalf of our team and our board, we want to extend a heartfelt thank you for all that you do and acknowledge the difference that you're making both for pets and in your community. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I know sometimes it can be tough, and we wanted to say we're behind you and just thankful that you're there on the ground. Okay, so here's our annual grant cycle calendar. So you have a bit of an idea of what we go through every year here at the foundation. So the grant portal opened March 1st, so just last Friday, and then it'll close April 14th. Then after that, we'll go through a really rigorous process, April through May, of reviewing each and every application. And then once those scores come in June, July, we'll go through the site audits. And then hopefully by August, you guys will have a decision, and then you'll see the award notifications go out and the funding go out before the end of the year. So below are the grant opportunities available for this year. So first is Dogs Rule. There's one of these, and it's a $50,000 a year for 2 years grant, okay? And it's to support an innovative initiative that focuses on increasing adoptions rates. And just know this is something that we look to partner with you on for right around 2 years, and we're looking for a best practice that you can then put it into a manual or a toolkit for any other shelter or rescue to have as a resource, okay? The next are probably our most popular grants, our program development grants, and these are around activities that support improving dog adoption rates, and we'll talk about the categories that we're funding this year. And those are around existing programs that you have or a new program that you'd like to try within your shelter or rescue. And then finally, The disaster relief grants, these are open all year round. And I just want to, remind you guys of these as there's so many things that are going on, from wildfires to tornadoes, et cetera, and any puppy mill seizures. So these are available all year round. The application is on the website, and then you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. And they're up to $5,000, okay? Just so you know, the three kind of grants that we're offering. Okay, and so just talking about a reminder, this is going to be very similar to last year for 2024. These are the programming, like the programming that we're funding this year. These three programs are what we're leaning into to help make a difference in the animal welfare community. The first is transport programs. So sending and receiving, especially I know has been a little bit slower this year with so many shelters being at overcapacity. That's another one that we'll be funding again this year. Foster programs. We think that's a huge opportunity as long as we can find enough people to be doing that in your community. And then behavior programming. So anything around socialization, training. We've had several applications for play yards. And then, for any other enrichment activities that go along with behavior. So just know, as you apply for an application this year, these are the three programs that has to be under: transport, foster, or behavior. And that goes for the dogs rule, and that goes for the program development, okay? And a really specific reminder, because I know I even saw some of this in the applications from last year, we are not funding any medical supplies or veterinary care related expenses this year again. Okay, so this is going to include any of your vet costs, any of your spay and neuter programs, treatments, vaccines, medical. One of the things I want to remind you that we do fund are your resources. So your staffing, if you've got a behaviorist you want to bring on board, those are things that we fund. And then we also, and I'll go ahead and mention it now, we will also fund a little bit of capital around, if it's around those three programs: transport, behavior, or foster, okay? And we'll go through that in a bit more detail here in just a sec. So let's talk in depth really quickly around each application, and just looking at the dogs rule, which will be, it's highly competitive. We usually get around 100 applications each year, but one grant is available in 2024, and we're really looking for cutting edge, innovative process that would really help other shelters and rescues. And again, it's going to be in the areas of focus: transport, foster, and behavior. And we'd be looking for a manual or a toolkit at the end of the partnership. Okay, so after 2 years. And so just as a reminder, the guidelines are available on pedigreefoundation.org. Please make sure that you review those before you take the time to fill out an application, and make sure your programming is falling within those guidelines, okay? And program development, which I think almost 80% of you on this call are probably interested in. And these are grants between 10 and 15,000. Okay, so it's somewhere in between there. And they're again focusing on transport, foster, and behavior. But these are activities maybe in the past, or maybe last year you started a behavior enrichment program. You saw that you were able to impact, say, 50 dogs through that funding. What we want to see is, how can you expand that, make it better, maybe impact more pups that are coming into the shelter. These are the types of programs that we're looking for. And just as a reminder, I've got in here the capital funding piece of that. So for instance, a van related to transport is something that we'll look at as far as resourcing and funding. And like I said, play yards or any of the other things that might be within those programs. And if you've got specific questions about that, you can always call me, email me, or even chat in this in today's webinar, and we'll try to address that at the end of the session, okay? Okay, most important part, and I think over the years, we've always tried to be really transparent about what we're looking for in these programs as a foundation. And I know many of you have called in January, December around getting feedback from last year's application to try to make, kind of see what the scoring was, what the feedback was, and try to kind of improve your application for this next round. So what we'll do is go through each section of the application together, and I'll kind of talk through what we're looking for in the narrative piece, and that way hopefully you can address that with a clear, concise answer. Okay, so this first one starts out. Program has a clearly defined purpose that addresses a current need and reflects strategy and benefit to organization. Okay, so here's where we want you to be clear and concise about what you need. Why is it needed in your shelter, maybe even in your community? We want you to talk about the strategy that you're going to use to meet that need, okay? And explain how the program will benefit the organization, how it ultimately increases dog adoptions. That's what we're looking for in that first part of the application. And here's what I would say. This isn't a place for stories. This is a place for data, for trying to get across the need for this program within your shelter, how you've aligned internally within your shelter, within your rescue. This is what you want to focus on with this program and with this funding. So that's what we really want to see in this application, in this first program purpose piece that we'll look at. And then each of these sections are what we actually review and evaluate, score during the review process. So the better that you can answer these questions, the better scoring that you'll have overall. So second, this is really, when I think about this, is the quantitative piece of the application, okay? And so what we look at here, I want you to address the specific goals and metrics that you hope to achieve with this program, okay? So when we look at this, I want you to talk about the timeline. I want you to talk about what's involved with meeting your goal. And I want you to talk about where you are in your process now. Maybe it's a brand new program, but you would consider, maybe you can say, okay, we've had this many dogs come through this particular program. We came in at 150 last year. If we do this, this, and this, and you're telling us about all this, what will that do within the shelter? So things I'm looking for are very specific metrics. So we're going to transport X amount more. We're going to decrease the length of stay by a certain number of days. And if you've got data kind of thinking about how you've gotten to those, either estimates or, maybe using what you had last year as an actual, and then you're saying, okay, this year we're really trying to ramp it up with this funding, and this is what we're trying to do. So be very specific here in what you're trying to accomplish with this funding. Okay, so that's that second part. This third one, evidence of community partnerships and engagement. And let me talk about a little bit about why we look at this. What we notice overall in our shelter community, in our rescue community, is those that are really interacting with each other, that are, you're involved in your community, you're engaged with your community. Maybe you have partnership with local vets, maybe you're working with a hub of shelters in your group. These are the types of things that we have seen that can only benefit a shelter and the pets in its care. And we want you to talk through that during this section of the evaluation. So talk about your community partnerships and your engagement, okay? So you're going to talk about, maybe it's, I was talking to somebody yesterday that had an educational program where they're bringing in kindergartners to read to pups. You're serving the community that way, and hopefully having some interest in some kindergartners that might want to own pups later in their life, or you're offering other programs to your community, or maybe you're partnering with a vet. They're helping you with reduced costs on something. Yeah, do you partner with other businesses or other nonprofits? I think that's always helpful as we look to your difference in a community. And then, yeah, are there any other resources? You know, a lot of folks I'm seeing, especially in the last couple of years, are doing virtual training, behavior training. They're bringing people in from the community with brand new adoptions, and they're doing that first level of training there. You know, those are the types of things that I want you to talk about. So, you know, as we review these applications, we read what's in your narrative and we look at your budget. And what I want you to get across in the narrative, we're not going to know everything that you guys are doing in your shelter and how you're working within your community. Here's where I want you to put that information, and yeah, don't assume that we know everything. Really make it a clear, concise answer, but really kind of talk through some of those partnerships that you have that allows us to see that you're really hoping to learn, always, you know, learning from others, always involved, always trying to engage the community. That hopefully leads to more donations for you and your pets in your care. Okay, so evidence of active board member and volunteer support. I know you guys all have this. Some of you are running completely on 100% volunteers. Some of you have a board. You know, tell me how they engage. Are they offering their volunteer services, you know, a certain number of hours? Are they donating on an annual basis? I talked through, you know, your volunteers, maybe some of the programming that you're doing. Are you doing Date with a Dog, where you have, or are you having a certain number? Maybe you're trying to grow your foster network. Those are the types of things that we like to see and hear that you're, where yeah, you can definitely tell us that, hey, we've got a lot of volunteer support. We've got our board members support. So we're internally supported in essence. And then hopefully that you're drawing on their knowledge and their help throughout the year for help with the pets. And lastly, this one I know can be a tough one. And I say that because I know sometimes resources are really scarce. But here is where I want you to identify a sustainability plan for the program at the end of the grant period. So say that you get funding for this year. What would that look like next year if you weren't able to get funding from the Pedigree Foundation? So I want you to kind of think ahead. I know that so many of you have got galas, runs, you've got email campaigns around maybe specific, like you're trying to grow your foster network. So what are the things that you're doing? Maybe you're applying for other grants as well. That's something I want you to tell us about. So these are the things that I think are helpful for them to understand that you've got other resources coming in besides this funding, and that can help support this program in the future. So what we want to see is not a program that runs just 1 year, right? We want to see a long-term sustainable program that hopefully is beneficial to you, your staff, and the pets in your care for a long time. And so what we're looking for there, and just think about, I know, sometimes people don't fill this applicate or this part of the application out with, very small things. We'll look to our donors, but I know you're doing so much more than that. And so if you'll put that information in here, that way they can see and really get a grasp on the fact that you've got more resources coming in other than our funding. Okay.
Hey, just to add on to that, this is Tiffany Beer. Just, this is about just making sure that you're thinking about it and to show that you're thinking about it in the future of these programs. So, even if it is just, if it's talking about how you have these events to fundraise, or that you're asking for donations, it's the thought that you're putting into these programs to keep them running. So that's really what we're looking for.
And that's a great point. Here, let's go to. Okay, and lastly, I think a detailed program or project budget. And so when we ask for your budget piece, I think we typically ask for kind of an organizational budget, and then we ask for this detailed piece. This is actually the budget that our grant reviewers will review. And so what I want you to address specifically is if it's for the 100,000 for dogs rule, or if it's 15,000 for your program development, I want you to address in that budget exactly where those monies are going. So maybe it's 5,000 toward behaviorist hours, maybe you've got 5,000 toward enrichment activities and 5,000 toward a play yard. We want to see exactly within that program budget where you'll be spending the money. It lets us know you've talked about it, that's how you're going to achieve your goal. And so it's super helpful to have that type of detail. If you have resources or staff that you want to fund, it's super helpful to put number of hours at a number of rates so that they can see that you've looked through all of this, and really talk through that. And I will tell you this, I know some of you have contacted me in the past and just said, hey, I don't, we don't really work with budgets a lot. We're typically in the shelter the whole time. I've got an applicant or a grant budget template that I can send you if you want to email me after this webinar, and I can just send that over to you and we can talk through that if you'd like. I just want to make that resource available to you, as I think it's helpful if you don't have a starting place, I guess is what I would say, okay? And so let's talk about, so after we review the grants, those will get scored into a specific categories. So you'll see from 1 to 5 is our average scoring. And then what happens next is we'll actually go on site, and the majority is on site unless for some reason we can't get to you. We'll have a virtual audit, but I'll let Dr. Tiffany walk through this section with you, and talk about what is basically the final step before funding. Okay, so Dr. Tiffany.
Hello there. So just as a basis for these audits, just to let you know kind of where it comes from and what we're really looking for. We're really looking for items that are based on the 5 freedom principles. And I think these are principles that everyone's well aware of. They're internationally accepted as kind of those basic freedoms that every living being is subject to or is has a right to. So it talks a little bit about them more here. And I'm just going to go over the bottom section of this, which is really the basis of them. Their freedom from hunger or thirst, that animals will have ready access to fresh water and a diet to help maintain their full health. Freedom from discomfort, that all animals are provided with an appropriate environment to help them feel safe and secure. Their freedom from pain, injury, and disease. This is about providing them with diagnoses and treatment if needed. The freedom to express normal behavior, and that's giving them an environment or space or facilities or, having them exposed to other animals of their same species to provide company. It's really giving them the freedom to be themselves, right? For a dog to be a dog. And then the last one is freedom from fear and distress. Obviously, that one's a pretty obvious one. By ensuring conditions and treatment won't cause them any suffering, any pain, any fear. And those 5 principles are really the basis of everything we're looking for when we're doing an audit of your facilities. Go ahead in the next one. And so as people go through these audits, there's a couple of basic categories of things that we're looking at. And most of the time, this is it actually, we call it an audit, but it's really kind of a fun experience at the same time, because this is really an opportunity for you to really share what you guys do every day and what you guys do really well every day with our auditors. And this is actually one of the most enjoyable things that I think our volunteers have at the foundation is going on these audits, because they get a chance to listen to you guys, see what everyone's doing, and see all the wonderful pets that you're taking care of on a daily basis. So just really quick on the different categories that we're looking in. The first one is really on the animal shelter itself and those exterior grounds. We're looking to make sure that it's secure, that it's clean, that it's lighted, that it's well taken care of, because that's really going to tell us how well the animals are being taken care of as well, and also how you come across to the public, right? Which is so important for being able to get animals adopted out. The next one is the animal care areas and the procedure areas. Again, making sure that they're well maintained. So when they're well maintained and they're not exposed to the elements, then that will assure us that the animals are well cared for, that they're going to get the proper care that they need, and the proper environment to live in until they find their forever homes. For veterinary services, again, is the animal examination areas clean? Are they really appropriate for the type of care that you're providing there? Are the pets going to get the right amount of care or the right type of care when they're in those veterinary service areas? Are the medications up to date? Are the controlled substances in locked areas? Just making sure that everything's done on a very appropriate basis. The next one is the adoption procedures, making sure that, vaccinations are being done. Feeding and shelter needs are discussed with the new owners at the time of adoption. Just making sure that, whatever the procedures are for adopting these pets out are appropriate for that pet, making sure that we're getting them into the right homes. And then the last one are your employee practices. I think someone was asking a question earlier in the chat that we asked about with regard to training of the staff at the shelters, which yes, you can apply for. But we're making sure in the audit, we're making sure that there are those continuing education programs or supportive education classes for your staff so that they're properly equipped to handle the pets and properly equipped to provide the care for them and also to get them adopted again into the right homes. So this is a really quick kind of explanation of the 5 different areas that we'll be covering in the audit. And if you have any questions on it, please go ahead and ask us.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Tiffany. And I do think, so this is kind of the application through the site audit. This is kind of all of our subject material today. And so what I want to do now is just kind of talk through what's next. So the application deadline is April 14th, and then we talked about the award notifications and funds dispersed. But when I want to go back, I've seen a couple questions in the chat. And so let me go back to our guidelines really quickly. So you must be a 501c3. You can be shelter. That means, physical or non-physical or foster based. So if you do not have a physical location, we have a site audit template just for that reason. Dr. Tiffany actually helped us create that. So we have a site audit for a physical location and we have for a foster location. So someone that doesn't have a one physical location. Okay, so that's something not to be worried about. We've got that handled. Also, the municipal shelters that are on this call, if you have a Friends of or a Humane Society, that you can apply through them. So that's one way that we're able to hopefully help our municipal shelters. So you can definitely use a Friends of or Humane Society that's, that you're partnering with. And if you have any questions around that, just let me know. Just reach out to me, send me an email. Happy to talk through that a bit more, okay? And so if we want, Dr. Tiffany and I can kind of go through the questions in the chat. We've got a bit of time here, so we'll try to get to everyone, okay?
There's a couple, Meg, just to start.
Yeah.
The questions. I wrote a couple down that I said we get back to. There's questions on whether or not microchipping is considered a medical expense or if it's something that we would support.
It is considered a medical expense at this point.
Okay. And then the next one is, there was a question around monies that would be given. I think this is in a transport grant. Okay. Monies for receiving shelters for medical expenses like heartworm.
Yeah, and I see. Okay, so you've taken on some pups that then now have heartworm, right?
I think
Coming
this is the
from,
one if you're transporting it to a different shelter and you want to give them, you're the one that's applying for it and you want to give them monies to the receiving shelter.
and I know we can give monies to the receiving shelter. I know that we're really trying to stay away from the medical piece. So if you can, they can receive those monies, but maybe it can't be used for the parvo piece. Makes sense. Let's see.
Yep, here's another one. We go to this one first. Given fostering a litter of puppies with a mama is different than costs of fostering a single dog, should we request reimbursement on an average cost for an average LOS in the foster home?
Yeah, and I think I'd look to see, what your data was maybe the past 2 years and then look at an average there. And if there's something that, maybe you're seeing more, maybe you're seeing more mamas and puppies come in, then do the math that way. And if you're seeing less, I think go the other way. So yeah, kind of do the right average for your rescue or shelter, okay?
I think as long as you tell us how you're doing the average and how
Yeah.
you're calculating it, I think you'll be good.
Yeah, that's no problem. You can always just shoot me a message when you decide to submit your application, or even before you submit your application. We could just talk through that and we can make a note within the narrative that just talks to that. If people have questions, that way it's there for
And
them.
you're giving your contact in here, right?
Yes, yes. So that'll
Yep.
be here.
I've
Oh,
been
here,
asked that a couple of times.
let me do that here, right? That way you have everything right in front of you, and Dr. Tiffany too. But feel free to reach out to me. This is my full-time job, and I've been doing this for, gosh, it's 8 years now. So really happy, and I'm seeing some familiar names coming through the chat, and just happy to see your faces again, and then some new names too. So happy to work with you around any questions that you may have. So here's our emails, just in case if you might need it. And so let me go to, oh, here's a good one. Can you apply for multiple grants? So for this instance, so if you applied for a Dogs Rule grant and then you also wanted to apply for a program development, yes, you can apply for those. Can you apply for, say, 5 program development? I would say no. So I'd like you to apply for the one program, one, specific thing that you feel really strong about that you want funding for. And the reason I say that is we've got so much volume coming in around these applications. They're high quality applications, and I want to give everyone a fair shot having their application read and scored. And this way it just keeps us with that ability to do that with the number of people that we have as grant reviewers, okay? So if you applied for a Dogs Rule and you applied for a program development and you got the Dogs Rule, you're not going to get the program development. But if for some reason you didn't get the Dogs Rule, you would get the program. So whichever one you would apply for there, if you got 2, then we'd always give you the higher one, for instance. Does that make sense?
And someone asked how competitive the Dogs Rule are. I think all the grants are pretty competitive. I think the Dogs Rule one have less people than the program development that are applying for them.
For sure.
But gosh, we see so many really, really good applications. So they're pretty competitive in both cases.
They are. They're very competitive, and we're seeing a lot more volume just because the need is so great. You guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, there's hardly any resources. It's staff turnover. You've got a lot of things going on within your shelter and rescue, and so we want to make sure that we can address that. Yes.
Some people can't see the slides, so if I'll type in, if you keep answering questions, I'll type in the emails.
Okay, perfect. Yep, that's perfect. Okay. Have you shared who has received grants in the past? This one, I just saw that one. Yes, and in fact, it's a great resource. I should have mentioned it earlier. If you go on our website and go underneath the shelters tab, you can select So we have everything out there, I think, for the last 5 years. So select, say, 2022 Dogs Rule. You'll see who the recipient was and what their program they applied with. So it kind of gives you some ideas too around, what programs made it through to the end. Same for program development. Go back to 2021 or 2020, take a look at those programs and see what they were for, who received them. We're all over the United States and Puerto Rico and Hawaii, and Alaska. So, geography wise, nothing is limited there. It's all around. And, what I want to make clear is it's all around the quality of the program. That's what this application is all about. That's what I want you to help explain in order to receive the funding. So those that are, and we say there it is competitive because people have gotten better and better at writing these applications. You may have some people using grant writers. But don't, I would tell you this, and from Dr. Tiffany and I just being on, doing this for so long, you may have a grant writer, somebody that writes the grants for you, or you may be doing that on your own as a volunteer. I want you to put together the best, application that you can with the resources that you can. You can kind of tell right away if it's a grant writer versus maybe a volunteer, but if you answer the questions and have a great program, there's not going to be any difference between you as a volunteer and someone as a grant writer, right? I'm giving you what we need to see on that application, and I'm hoping that you'll use that as you write that narrative to help you get a better score.
Just to answer this one, it says I'm sorry if I've missed this, but other than funding, what's the difference between Dogs Rule and program development? Really what we're looking for, yeah, there's a big difference in the funding. And because of this, for those Dogs Rule grants, we're looking for something that's really going to kind of change the game, right? Those bigger programs that are just something different, something that's really innovative and is really going to change, the way that we're operating, or really increase the amount of dogs that are finding their homes. Because what we're hoping is these Dogs Rule grants help develop a program that that you guys can share out and with other shelters and rescues throughout the nation or even throughout the world, right? And share out those best practices that you've learned from there. And that's really what the programs in the past have been about, and that's what we're hoping for the new ones.
Yeah, and you'd see that partnership for 2 years with us. We'd also, looked for you guys to lead some webinars on some of the things that you're doing. And I bounce a lot of ideas off of you too, as a Dogs Rule recipient, just, what you're encountering at the ground level, what you're seeing, if you're seeing overcapacity again, if you're seeing low big dog adoptions, those types of things. Those are always informative things that we like to know and kind of take into consideration as we're looking through the grants. This one question says, does the money need to be used in 1 year? Yes. So when you receive your grant award, all this information is listed out, but yes. So say you receive funding in November, et cetera, maybe around the November, hopefully September timeframe this year. So we would look for that funding to be complete and used by that next September, October, November timeframe. And if, for instance, let me give you an example. We had a dental program right in the start of 2020 for the pandemic, and their staff, they ended up not being able to have any staff, et cetera. We will work with you in situations like that where, it's not something that's your fault, or, it's something that's, maybe happened, whether it's a pandemic type situation or maybe something else has happened within your resources or your staff. Give me a call, give me an email, or send me an email, and we'll just talk through it, okay? I think that's always the best, and we try to work as much as we can with you, but we would look for basically an annual spend, 1 year time.
I'm just gonna maybe it's better to just answer this one. It says the way we work, we have requests for transfer into our behavior program from Nationwide, and we are adding foster parents to help with this request load. Would it be beneficial to show that we are focused on all three areas you are looking for to support. My suggestion would be, yes, if it's a very focused program that you're talking about, what I wouldn't do is dilute your message to try and cover all three just to cover all three. If it's naturally part of the program you are, absolutely talk about it, because that is a benefit. But you don't have to be covering all three. And I've seen it in the past where people have tried to cover all three, and it's diluted what they're trying to do or diluted their program. So only do it if it's really, you know, already built in inherent part of the program you're trying to do.
That's a
Hopefully
great
that
point,
makes sense.
and that's great advice, Dr. Tiffany.
Someone's got their hand up.
Let's see.
Shirley.
They do.
I have you unmuted, Shirley, if you wanna. Is it Shirley Palumbo?
No, she's still.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, here's one. If you do not currently have an audit, but are going to have one this year, but it won't be finished by April 14th, can you still apply? Okay, so we're really specific on this. You've got to have 2 years of data. And then, yes, if you're applying for a dog's rule, you'll have to have that third party, 2 years of that third party audit. And then for program development, you don't need to have that audit, but you need to have 2 years of data there, okay? Okay. Here's another good question. I think after the end, you know, after you're awarded a grant, this is all in kind of the award packet that we give, but what are the reporting requirements if you receive a grant? And as it stands now, we'll be looking for an interim report around the 6-month mark, so usually around June, and then we'll look for a final report at the end of the year. And what we ask for in these will be in the same portals that you use for your application submissions. We actually talk to, you know, what the numbers were that you used in your application compared to where you are now. And so really talking about, you know, what are the successes that you've had or any challenges that you faced. Maybe, you know, you're working to install a play yard and you're in Minnesota and it's been you guys have been frozen for like 2 months and you haven't been able to get in. Those are the types of things I typically see. So really talking about how you're moving toward those goals. And then we also ask for 2 stories and 2 pictures, you know, about your particular program that we can share with our donors, that we can share with our board. And at that, you know, and then we ask you to do some, I think, social posts as well. But that's the majority of what we're asking from our grantees at this time.
Sorry, I think I may have answered one of these wrong in the past. If staff salaries are considered general operating expenses, that means we cannot fund staff expenses for a behavior program with program development, correct? No, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Sorry, I think I may have answered that wrong before. So you can ask for that.
Yeah, no problem. And I think too, you know, as people are looking for, you know, maybe we're not seeing as many volunteer fosters or volunteer coordinators as we used to. You know, you're looking to maybe expand your volunteer network or your foster network. And so you're looking for a foster coordinator. That's an example. Behaviorist hours, those are an example of things that we'll cover. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, any other, but you can think as transport coordinator. That's another big one that we cover. Those folks that handle those transports are amazing people. Got all the logistics working out of that. Those are a great investment, I think, on our behalf for resources. I'm just thinking.
I'm not sure if we've covered this one. Is there a specific number of program grants that will be funded? There isn't a specific number because it always depends on how much people are asking for and what types of grants we get and what the scores are when we have people that are rating the grants. So it really depends on all those factors. So there isn't a set number.
I think that's the best. Yeah. So we'll look and, you know, we'll look to, I mean, if you look at the past, you know, we're looking at probably between 40 and 50 around there is our average that we
Yep.
look at. Yes, and when you go through, I see a question here around the data and the financial statements, et cetera. The way that I've got that listed in our application is 2023, if you have it, 2022 and 2021. So if you have 2023 available and you want to use 2022, those are the two that I need. If you don't have 2023 available, which I think is a lot of people, use 2022 and 2021 for your financial statements, okay? It gives you three options or three places to attach. And so just attach those for any of those 3 years.
And I know I said something I answered one of them really quickly, but it said, I'm interested in applying for support of a new program we have to support behavior dogs getting adopted. It's highly effective in increasing adoption, but the overall volume is not large. Is the foundation looking at volume of dogs being served or quality of dogs being served? We kind of look for a combination of both and a balance of both. I think the quality, honestly, personally, for me, is the one that really matters, is getting a really good quality program, especially one that can be sustained or shared with other people. But we have funded, such a large variety of grants. Some of them have been very small, but very impactful, and others have been larger and helped a large amount of dogs. So, there's a good balance of both of those.
Yeah, and I could point out just specifically, if you are working with, let's say, difficult or aggressive, you're looking at a more difficult case. Let's say that. I know that there's several programs throughout the country that focus on that particular set of pups, that really need that extra time. And so I know we funded those programs in the past. So, and I would agree with Tiffany wholeheartedly. It's around the quality. It's how you wrap this program up for us that you're showing us exactly how it's going to work in your shelter, in your rescue, to impact the dogs in your care.
It's a good one for you, Meg. Do hoarding cases have to come through local law enforcement or animal services, or can they come directly to us? We often have elderly owners who have passed away, and family find the home filled with dozens of dogs in tragic condition. Family reaches out to us in fear of them being euthanized at a municipal facility.
So we'll look at either one of those. We typically will look at the puppy mill seizures, but if you have a situation where it's just like that and the family has come to you as a shelter, as a rescue, go ahead and send it to me and let me look at it, okay? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that we'll make the easiest one is where law enforcement has come in and, or the ag department, whoever has come in and said, we've got 200 pups here in Utah, et cetera, that we need extra care for. But we do know that those hoarding cases happen a lot around the country. So what I would say is, as you look at your year, as you look at the disasters that come through, any of the hoarding cases, those puppy mill seizures, choose the one that you really need funding. And we'll take a strong look at those hoarding cases. Okay.
There's one with financial statements. If a municipality is partnering with a 501c3, do you want to do 3 years of financial statements from the 501c3 or the municipality?
Yeah, from the 501c3. And then what you'll use for the data for the census, so like intake, average, length of stay, et cetera, you'll use your municipal shelter. Sorry, I'm starting to. You'll use the municipal shelter data so that you can give us an idea of who you're helping. Let's see. Transportation volunteers, can we ask for mileage? Yes, I've seen people ask for mileage. I would be, maybe there's a set amount of the budget that you would have for that, and then maybe larger amounts for the actual transport itself or whatever's involved with that program. But I have seen mileage come through, and we've seen people say, volunteers are staying in a hotel or whatever. Those are the types of costs we can cover. So so let me just a broad statement around the disaster relief applications. So in those applications will cover everything. So we cover medical, we cover vet costs, we cover boarding, so I don't think there's anything
Grooming
we
if
don't.
needed.
Yeah, grooming if needed. What we typically will see, I mean, it's just your med care, right? That we see a huge portion of costs for the most part, but we will cover any and all costs that come through that application process, just so you know. Is there anything else you guys can think of as we go through nearing the end? Grooming is covered.
Yep.
So if they come to you in an awful condition, the disaster relief grants are open all year, okay? The annual grant cycle is your dog's rule and your program development, but at any point in the year, that disaster relief application is open. And once you fill it out, just make sure to read everything that you need to include with your application, and that will come directly to me, okay? And then we'll start the process from there. And what I want to see around disaster, and I know there's a lot going on out there. I really know there's extreme cold, there's extreme heat, but I really would like to see, we're talking wildfires here, we're talking tornadoes, hurricanes. And I say that because we don't have an unlimited amount of funds for this particular portion of our grants, and I really want to focus on those that are in desperate need of funding to help in a situation, that they can't control. If there's something, extreme cold, for example, maybe Texas or something like that, where hopefully you would have insurance that maybe if pipes busted, things like that. But always, if you have a question about it, just contact me. It's not, I'll be happy to talk through it with you. Okay, this is a great question. Can we fill out the disaster relief program in anticipation of participating? The answer is no. And why I say that is because we're having so many disasters and puppy mill seizures. I know it would be such a great thing to be proactive in this. You would have a set aside 5,000 funds for something that may happen later in the year. But at this point, we're really looking for an event to have taken place, and then you apply for funding. Yes, hoarding will fall under disaster.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, is there anything else you guys? Okay, that's a great question too. So transport, we are focusing, we do have some grants in Canada as of 2022. So that application cycle will open up at closer to I guess in the fall, September, October. But if you are transporting internationally, what we are focusing on, I'm asking you not to apply for a transport grant if you're bringing pups in from another country. What we're really focusing on is America and the United States and where we are we've got so much overcapacity here. That's where we're really focusing on for this year and kind of trying to stay within those boundaries.
Here's one: would rescues from dog fighting apply?
We could consider that. I mean, I want to,
That may be one to that may be one to call us and talk about it.
Yeah, let's just talk about it and see, what the impact was, et cetera, et cetera. Can funds be used for behavior to prevent owner surrender? Great question. Yes. What we're seeing and what I was seeing a lot of these last couple of years is I've got shelters that give out behavior vouchers as they're as folks are adopting, maybe new adopters haven't, never had a dog before. Maybe they have, but maybe they know this dog is a bit more mouthy or something. They're giving out vouchers. They're doing a lot of virtual trainings. I know that we're seeing that. So if you have something maybe you're thinking about in your head, that's definitely something that you can include as part of your behavior program. I think that's an important part of community engagement. And yes, and it also keeps those pets in homes.
Yeah, we've seen a couple of the behavior programs
Mhm.
come through where, the program is started in the shelter. And then it, part of the entire program is expanding to community involvement, right? So offering these trainings and such to the community so that you can prevent owner surrender.
Exactly. I'm just looking one last time. I know we're about 5 minutes until the end. Anything else as far as just make sure, just reminder to check those guidelines. If you have any questions about the guidelines, just contact me first. Application is a labor of love. A grant application is a labor of love. And I know it. I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of heart. And what I don't want to see you do is apply for something that, that we can't fund this year, right? I want you guys to have the most success possible as you're applying with us. And super glad to have you on this webinar today, and just thanks for listening to me and Dr. Tiffany just talk a little bit about what we do here at Pedigree Foundation. And if there aren't any other questions, we will go ahead and wrap this up for this year, but know that you can always reach out to me okay, with any questions as you're even submitting through the application. If you see something that doesn't make sense to me, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk through anything that we're requiring on our end. Okay.
Yeah, and I know there was a person earlier that commented that, they hadn't gotten funded on previous attempts. And, the other thing that we can offer you is to talk about your previous applications and, give you some advice on why they weren't funded or things that you could do differently to increase your chances. So, make sure you take advantage of that because that's really an opportunity to get better and better with these applications.
That's right. Then we'll call
Thank
it a
you,
day. Thank
guys.
you so much, guys. And I hope it's a good week. And we'll be talking soon.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Yes. Thank you. All right. Bye.